G'day guys, just a real quick update. Still waiting for some parts to come in from the US. The different model triple clamp, obviously this one didn't fit. So I thought I'd just do some calculations on the steering geometry, just to see if we need to make any adjustments to either the rake, the length of the fork, or the offset of the fork. So I'll go into that a bit with you today. So you can see that the original top triple clamp where the head stem spindle goes through to the center of the top of the fork is about 50mm offset from the spindle to the center of the fork. Whereas you can see with the later model unit, it's quite different. So you've got less offset from where the spindle goes through to the center line of the fork. It's about 22mm on the standard RMZ triple. Now, that has some implications when it comes to the steering geometry. So I'll go a little bit into that. So there's a difference with the fork leg as well. And this is something you need to be really careful of when you're doing conversions. So you can see on the original fork leg, the axle's directly underneath the bottom of the fork leg. So the 50mm offset is true 50mm offset from the center of the axle and the center of the fork leg to the center of the head stem spindle. Whereas if you look at the modern day equivalent, you can see that there is actually an offset from the center of the fork leg to the center of the axle out, so forwards, which kind of offsets the difference between the triple clamp offset. So, and that is about 25mm. So, if we do the maths, you've got 50mm total offset between the center line of the headstock spindle, and this one you've got 22mm, and then you've got a further 25mm on the fork leg. So actually your offset is very close. It's within a few millimeters of one another in real terms. Now there is, with the slightly less offset, there is a slight steering geometry change. So I'll try and go through that a little bit with you just on paper. So I'll get some scribbles happening for you. So basically, with the slight difference in offset, it changes the what Tony Foyle says is the real trail a little bit. So it actually makes the trail slightly shorter. So if you visualize your front wheel, center of your axle, and then going up through your forks, and then you've got your center of your head stem on your bike, and that goes to your chassis. So if we take this down to the ground, and that, that's your ground in real terms. And you can do this all to scale, and then we drop a line straight down at perpendicular to the ground. You've got a trail distance in here. Now this is a bit exaggerated because of the rake that I put on the fork, but it's easier to see. So you've got the trail here. Now interestingly, the further forward you put the axle from the head stem, the real trail, so the trail that actually is in the surface contact area, is actually reduced. So the further forward you go without adjusting your rake, the less trail you have. So that has some implications when the wheel is, when you're going around a corner, you've got your rider, and your wheel is turning into the corner. It has some implications there. It also has some implications with the kind of twitchiness of the steering, if that makes sense. So how responsive the steering is. because when you increase your rake, your trail increases as well, and it makes your wheel. So if you really exaggerate it from a side view, if you've got that kind of rake on your forks, your wheel, if you look at it, kind of wants to fall over more when you steer. Whereas the further up you stand this, the more twitchy, so the more the wheel stands upright in comparison to the fork angle. So when I do the maths on this, we actually have about an 8mm reduction in trail because of the slight difference between that headstock and triple clamp and that triple clamp in the offset distance. So less offset distance, less offset distance than this one, a little bit more, so it adjusts the trail a little bit on the bike. So I can tolerate that much. It's for me, it's for my use, so the bike's going to be a little bit more twitchy than it originally was. And to be honest with you, 1970s off-road machine, it's pretty laid back, the steering, so it's pretty docile, pretty sort of good in corners and at high speeds in a straight line, and a little bit less maneuverable than its newer counterparts. And that's probably a function of the type of riding that we were doing in the 70s compared to the type of riding that we're doing now, which is more maneuverability, and motocross bikes, they want a bit quicker steering. So I wouldn't mind quicker steering on this machine, so I'm happy with that. But it is something you need to be very mindful of when you're doing a front end replacement on a motorbike, that you need to understand what your offsets are and what your fork offset is compared to the original, and then make sure that you don't totally throw your steering geometry out by putting a set of forks into this. You've got crazy long trail or crazy short trail, or you're standing your rake up right up steep, or you're letting your rake fall right back, depending on the length of the fork. So and that's a consideration that I've brought up earlier in the earlier videos. The newer fork is much longer than the older fork. So what I will do is I'll actually shorten the newer fork, so I'll reduce the length, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to leave a little bit of extra fork poking out of the top of the top triple clamp. Now what that lets me do is that if I find it's too twitchy, so if I find that the steering geometry change due to the difference in offset is not comfortable to ride, or I'm finding that there's something that doesn't feel right under the hand, then what I can do is I'll leave about 20mm here, or maybe 10, and I can push that through. Now what happens is when I push that through, I'm increasing the rake of the fork, and again, these are really exaggerated, so you've got a much flatter rake angle, so you're increasing your trail length back. So I've done the calculations. About 5 to 10mm here will get me back to exactly the same trail distance, or real trail distance, as Tony Foyle calls it, on the front wheel as the original design for the chassis. So if I have any problems where I'm getting the front washing out, or it's feeling skitterish under brakes or any of that kind of stuff, I'll have the ability just to push that through a little bit and get me a little bit more rake, which is not ideal. It's not the best way of doing it. I'd like to be able to customize the chassis a little bit to readjust all that out and get rid of that properly, but I'm not in the luxurious position of doing that just yet, and fix that properly. But it allows, just having that little bit of play there allows me to have some adjustment on the fly, or worst comes to worst, I could CNC a set of triple clamps up where I can adjust the offset a little bit in or out depending on which way it's done, but I don't want to go down that road if I don't have to. You might be able to buy some, but they're pretty early. They're a 2004 set of forks, so they're pretty early in models, so I'm not sure that I'm actually going to be able to get a hold of some billet triple clamps or something like that if I need to. But we'll deal with that when we come to it. So, but it's useful to do the calculations on paper. You can use a scale ruler with your actual wheel diameter with a tire on it, not just and with the bag in the sidewall with some weight on it, and not just like a theoretical tire size based off a book size. So I've done that. And I've done all of the scale drawings with a scale ruler just on paper, and it all checks out okay. It's a little bit less, and I'm not too fussed about that. But it's not ideal, but not the end of the world. Just a real quick update to the battery pack is proving to be quite problematic. Getting supply of the right kind of cells in Australia is tricky. I want to go with a pouch type cell rather than a cylindrical cell because I don't have the equipment to do the spot welding of the cylindrical cells anymore. So my spot welder decided it wanted to die, so that's the end of that. So yeah, I want to try something a bit different. I want to go with a pouch cell. Now the pouch cells are quite hard to get, but also quite large form factor. So I might need to adjust the chassis so to suit, because obviously the top part of the chassis in the original frame is just solid single pipe. Now I may need to split that pipe and go around a battery pack. And then join back up again, back towards the back of the chassis. So let's just see, about this big stinking great battery pack where I'm going to slot that. Let's just see if I can get the batteries to start with, and then let's again cross that bridge when we come to it. So you can see that like when we go through this process, there's lots and lots of problems, and they always keep coming. So it's just one thing at a time. So attack the steering first, make sure that that's right. We've ticked that off, and then keep on moving. I've got my motor on the water now, so I've purchased that. That's about a 3 to 6 week lead time for manufacturing and shipping, so that'll take a little while to get over to me, but I'm pretty excited about that. I am going to talk to my friendly vehicle engineer in the next few weeks just to see if I do have to make a massive chassis reconfiguration, whether I've got to go through a certification process for that or not on this particular machine. I suspect that I will, and if I do have to go through a recertification project, I might just build a custom chassis from scratch. It might be far less work, but let's just see. Let's just see where we get to with this particular modification. So I will talk to them shortly. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Yeah, if you want to just keep tabs, just hit the subscribe button and it'll hit your stream regularly. And yeah, we can keep on building on. Thanks, guys. Bye.